And Major Garrett is here with us from Milwaukee. Major, who has the most at stake tonight?
Look, everyone has a lot at stake. When the field narrows, it's now down to eight candidates on the stage. Donald Trump and Ben Carson still are the front runners. They have to maintain their front runner status. Jeb Bush has to prove his relevancy. Having talked to people close to the Bush campaign, they believe tonight really is his wheelhouse, economic policy. It should be a moment for him to shine. If he misses that moment, it'll be the fourth time in this campaign where he will have done that, and that could be a nearly fatal setback for his campaign, which is now really in an unlikely position. Jeb Bush, son, brother of former presidents, running fifth nationally, fifth in all the early primary states. This may be his last chance. And then for Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, they are drafting behind Ben Carson and Donald Trump. They are moving steadily up, but they haven't really jumped all the way up into that top tier. How they deal with Trump and Carson and project their own message, either against themselves or on behalf of themselves, will be an interesting subtext tonight. One other thing that's interesting about tonight, this debate will occur very close to our CBS debate Saturday in Des Moines with Democrats. And the economy itself is a huge topic. Well, the president and Democrats would argue Republicans are running down an economy that's performing very well. 68 straight months of private sector job growth, 13.5 million private sector jobs, the unemployment rate cut in half. President Obama has an op-ed in Bloomberg today talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, arguing that the economy is much better than Republican critics say it is. That, I think, will also be part of the atmospherics tonight. And if it isn't tonight, Democrats will certainly bring it up at their debate on CBS Saturday in Des Moines.
You know, the moderators have really sort of pledged to focus on real questions, focus on the economy, some international issues. But the talk of the past few days has been on Ben Carson and the stories about his upbringing and whether or not they're factual or not. So do you think there's any way to sort of avoid that? Do you expect that some of that's going to come up in the debate?
It very well might, and what Ben Carson will have to do is deal with those questions as he's tried to deal with them on the campaign trail. But there's also a huge challenge for Ben Carson in dealing with the economic issues, because if they are in fact deeper and more substantive than they were in the CNBC debate, and Fox Business Network has promised exactly that, if Ben Carson keeps up and is conversant on all those issues, then that will give his campaign added momentum. But if he falters in any way there, then he'll have two worlds colliding. Questions about his biography and questions of whether he's competent enough to handle deep economic issues and would be therefore qualified to be a Republican Party nominee and possibly president.
Major, there is a New York Times report out that says that Jeb Bush's allies are willing to spend up to $20 million to ruin Marco Rubio's reputation. Why would these allies announce that strategy ahead of time?
Well, this would be from the world of Jeb Bush's super PAC, and under federal law, super PACs operate independently from campaigns, but they do try to do things that would benefit a candidate on whose behalf they are at least theoretically aligned. And Jeb Bush's campaign, not originally, but now does believe that Marco Rubio is the one most likely to inherit the quote-unquote establishment Republican support if Jeb Bush continues to falter. But Jeb Bush has much bigger problems with his own campaign. He has to prove himself relevant in this conversation. He's dropped out of it considerably. As I said before, running not only fifth nationally, but running fifth in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. He is on the very ragged edges of relevancy in this campaign. So his super PAC may go after Marco Rubio, but Jeb Bush has got to resuscitate his own campaign, and that is by far his top priority.
Can I ask you a question about the undercard debate? And Chris Christie, who's now dropped down to the undercard debate, what does that mean, do you think, for his campaign? Is it the sort of beginning of the end? Or, you know, we've seen the undercard debate go well for certain people. There's fewer candidates to debate, and maybe you can actually shine.
You can have a moment to shine, but one thing we have learned consistently from the undercard debate, with the exception of the very first one where Carly Fiorina performed well and sort of used that as a catapult within the polls to qualify herself for the second debate, we really haven't seen a scenario where someone drops from the primetime debate to the undercard debate and that works out well for their campaign. And the Christie organization does make a point that I think is relevant here. They're saying these national polls, which is the metric by which these candidates are measured quote, qualification for the primetime or the undercard debate are not nearly as relevant as statewide polls. And unlike Mike Huckabee, Chris Christie has made gains in one early primary state, first in the nation primary state of New Hampshire. And his campaign argues, look, it's New Hampshire that's voting, not the nation. So I should be on that primetime stage, but the rules are what they are. Chris Christie has accepted them, and I'm sure he feels confident in the undercard debate. But the fact is, media coverage and social media traffic about that undercard debate is dramatically smaller than the primetime debate, so it's a huge challenge for Governor Christie.
All right, Major Garrett in Milwaukee, thank you so much, Major.
Stick with CBSN tonight. We're going to have full coverage of the fourth Republican debate starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, and even more analysis tomorrow morning starting at 7 a.m. Eastern.